Hi, this is Janossy. I'm going to show you what one of the online exercises looks like. I use these exercises in my distance learning and in my in-class courses to essentially force students to do the readings. What I'm going to do is tune into a website, www.crteacher.com. This is a website maintained by classroomrevolution.com. It's an ISP that hosts Moodle, and for the sum of $149 per year, I can put 150 students into Moodle and experiment with it as a means of supporting my instruction. I find this is very economical as a means of doing research on the subject. So I'm going to tune into GPH 205, Historical Foundations of Visual Technology, and here we have the course. I come into it, however, as an instructor, so I'm going to change myself to a student so that we can experience the exercise as a student would see it. And I'm going to tune into exercise number 3. There are 5 units in my courses and one online exercise like this for each one of the units. Students at least have the chance to do the exercise for the entire 2-week unit, and in courses with a final exam, I leave the exercises up for all units for the entire course. Students can do the exercise any number of times. So in this case, it says reattempt quiz because these learning management systems tend to think of these things as quizzes, whereas I think of them as online exercises. So here we have a question. Place a check mark in the box in front of any statement that's true in connection with art of the early Gothic era. All of these statements are related to Chapter 11 of the Story of Art or the diptych article associated with it. These are reading assignments I've given. Here are 10 true-false statements related to Chapter 11. Now, the graphic I've put here is simply something that I've collected up from images in the chapter. It's just to give a little bit of visual interest to the material. So, what happens here? 10 true-false statements. Well, some students may think that by just running through and checkmark everything, we'll see which ones are right or wrong, and then we can quickly game this sort of a little exercise. So I've checkmarked all of these statements as if they were true. Now I'm just going to submit all and finish, which means just this one question will appear on the quiz in the gradings. Well, here's my result. This latest taking of the exercise has resulted in 0 points. Since I only answered that one question, what's going on here? Well, it turns out that these are arranged in either an all or nothing format. All the check marks must be correct or no credit, or in the case of Moodle, which requires me to spread the credit across the true statements, you may get some partial credit based on essentially how many are wrong that you managed to avoid checking. So let me see what happens here if I answer this to the best of my ability. Since I presumably know this subject matter, I will avoid checkmarking the ones that are false. And let's suppose those 7 are the true statements. Well, let's find out what happens now. Wow, I seem to have known the subject matter. I got 10 points, which is the maximum for that question. But I don't see the check marks where I put them. I would have had to take some notes had I wanted to record that information. Supposing, in fact, I had reached an intermediate point on that question. I was pretty certain about some of these being true, but not so much the others. So these, I think, were true, but I don't think I know about the other ones yet. So having checkmarked only those 5 as true, what happened here? Well, I got 7 out of 10. Now, that's not too bad. That doesn't let me predict which ones of the remaining ones are false or true, but if I had kept some notes, I might be farther along towards understanding that. Now, it's not my preference to give partial credit on these. I just haven't been able to figure out how to make Moodle make it all or nothing with no credit for the questions in which at least one check mark is wrong. You might notice here, if you did compare notes from the earlier taking of this exercise, that now these true-false statements are in a different sequence. Just a little bit of background here. I've done this type of exercise now on 3 different systems. I've done it on Blackboard, I've done it on Moodle, and I've done it on Desire to Learn. Both Blackboard and Desire to Learn do let me run this as an all or nothing. I don't have to distribute the credit across the correct answers. Moodle, for some reason, I have not been able to find a way around the requirement to actually spread the credit across the correct answers. In the Moodle method, you do wind up getting partial credit. It makes it easier to game this thing. Still tedious, but it does make it possible to mechanically go through and after a good deal of time come up with the correct answers without having done the reading. That's why I don't really like this particular approach. I would hope Moodle had a feature to make it all or nothing. With all or nothing, there really isn't much of a way to game it. You simply have to do better than guessing at the answers. And the easiest way, of course, to accomplish that is to do the reading, which is really intended. There's another video I posted substantiating the research behind this type of an exercise, but it's my contention, and it has been borne out, that by giving this type of an exercise, covering assigned reading, it makes it absolutely essential for students to do the reading if you meet one other condition. That is, you must make the exercise count for something and not something trivial. That's why in the courses I conduct, these exercises count for half the grade. And that staggers the imagination of some people who think that that's entirely too much for the kind of thing that tests people on the knowledge they've acquired. However, my contention is, what is education anyway? You're going to have to acquire some facts. Your mind comes in as a blank slate in most cases on this subject matter. And I'm not interested that much in what you think about it. That's another subject. In order for us to discuss what you think about it, you have to know about it. I'm at the earlier stage here where I'm getting you to know about it by reading. Just a quick tour here of additional questions. You see, they all follow the same pattern. In this case, however, I've drawn the statements from different areas, so I've given right in the statement itself the chapter that the statement relates to. In all cases, the point of this is that when you do an exercise like this, it's presumed you've done the reading, but you may miss some. The ones that you miss, you really should go back and do the reading. However, I'm not going to tell you once you see the score which ones you've missed. So the real question is, you must interact with the reading materials and be active about it and take some notes in order to make this kind of a quiz work for you. What about the results? I find most students do these 5 to 15 times, although some do it many more times. Any system, Blackboard, Moodle, or Desire to Learn, shows you as an instructor everything the student is doing, including down to the selections they make for answers. You can readily detect when somebody is simply going at this mechanically because they may wind up doing 60 or 100 attempts on this. Whereas a lesser number is very typical of somebody who's actually done the readings and is simply refining their knowledge by doing the exercises. Don't call these quizzes. They're not quizzes. LMSs haven't caught up with the idea that you need exercises of this variety, so we have to implement them with the quizzing mechanism, but that's just a simple bunch of syntax. The fact of the matter is these are exercises, and I think it's most worthwhile for students to be able to do them any number of times, without a time limit, any number of times, because this is how you perfect your understanding of the readings. My name's Jim Janossy. This is one thing I've come up with after 26 years of teaching and confronting the problem of students not doing assigned readings. I find that I can have much better discussions with students, much higher quality discussions, much higher quality papers coming in when I implement this kind of a method. And I explain to students how to do the quizzes and what the purpose of them is. Another thing this lets you do is very early in a term, 2 weeks into the term, I can see by participation or lack of participation in these who is interested in the subject matter or who is at least interested in doing well in the course and who isn't. So I can start jumping on their case a whole lot sooner than waiting for a midterm. I think there's a lot of benefits to this kind of exercise. I would strongly recommend you're considering them.